Hello and welcome to the new Skill Sessions pod. I'm Hayley and this is your backstage pass to some of the best moments from the live skill session webinars. Now, if you are new here, you might be asking yourself, but what are skill sessions? Every month, we bring you experts and incredible guest speakers who share their knowledge and their real life experiences of different disabilities and neurodiversities. These online events are hosted by CareScribe. They're all about learning and growing and creating a more inclusive world for professionals just like you. Whether you're catching up on past sessions or you're tuning in for the first time, there's plenty of insights and inspiration lined up for you. Come and join the next skill sessions with a community of more than 1,800 like-minded individuals by heading over to CareScribe.io/events to see what's coming up next. As you're joining for the next half an hour, I should probably introduce myself properly. As I said, I am Hayley and I am part of the marketing team here at CareScribe. This is the newest venture, obviously a podcast. So welcome. Don't forget to join the conversation on LinkedIn if you are listening, because we would love to hear from you. Today, we're going to revisit a session from last year, creating a workplace where dyslexic minds thrive, with the incredible Natalie Brooks. Natalie is the founder of Dyslexia in Adults, a company that works to create a safe and creative space to discuss both the challenges and the strengths of being an adult with dyslexia. After struggling in the workplace herself, Natalie created the community to offer support and empower individuals to better understand themselves. I really loved this session. The whole focus was unpacking that really common phrase, I can't because I'm dyslexic. We see it every day, so we really understand that working with dyslexia can be really tough, especially if you don't have the right tools or the support at work. If you've got an hour to spare, I would really recommend checking out that full webinar. Take a look at the Skill Sessions playlist on our YouTube channel. I think I've linked it in the bio. Let's dive in and remember exactly how Natalie started her incredible session.
If you picture dyslexia, you're probably picturing a child who is stuttering with reading or struggling with learning to spell. And although that is the experience of many dyslexic people, it's quite a narrow lens to look through dyslexia. There are so many challenges that dyslexic people face. And obviously, as we know well, it follows you lifelong. So when we're kind of just talking about children, that isn't the entirety of it in the experience of dyslexic people. And so to me, helping people understand the reality of dyslexia and what we're really looking at, what we're really experiencing, the good and the bad, and how it hits us is really, really important for creating change and helping us create success for ourselves. So a little bit of this at the beginning is going to be talking about understanding dyslexia, because in my personal opinion, if you understand your brain, then you're able to give yourself some kindness to reduce the stress and anxiety that comes from dyslexia. You're able to think of better solutions and ways of managing dyslexia. You're also able to manage dyslexia through much more control, because instead of going into a meeting, realizing that you're struggling, feeling fearful, keeping quiet, you actually go in prepared and in control and clear on what you might need. So much of managing dyslexia is about managing it in advance. And if you don't understand it, then that can be really difficult. So that's why understanding dyslexia is something that I'm really passionate about.
Now, I would like to introduce you to Lucy. Lucy is a colleague of mine at CareScribe, and she is a neurodiverse woman in the workplace who resonated with Natalie's session so much that I think her comments are going to be invaluable. I've asked her just to have a listen to the same clip and share her thoughts and her experience, so that you can really get an understanding of how this applies to real life and the people in the workplace.
Oh, Natalie's intro resonates so much with me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own story and my journey. So I have dyslexia. I've known for a long time. So from a young child, it was very clear to at least my parents, as they say, that I had dyslexia. I had really interesting spellings from a very young age, and some areas I was very strong in sort of like written maths, I was exceptional, but in mental maths, I was bottom of the class type territory. And the same with spellings. Spellings were really poor, and other parts of English were very high, giving me that classic spiky profile. So from a young age, it was very clear. I was really privileged to have a diagnosis when I got a bit older. So as I was entering GCSE year, I got a formal diagnosis, which meant I was able to have extra time in exams, which was pretty essential to me, that extra time. And then I went to university. I studied geography, and I went through the DSA, the Disabled Students Allowance, and I did have some support. I had very little understanding of how dyslexia was actually impacted me at that time. And if I'm honest, I ignored it, and I just worked as hard as I possibly could at the time. I had quite a negative perception of my dyslexia and saw it as a, I guess, weakness, which is, I know, something that's very common. And then as I entered into the world of work, it wasn't something that even came across my mind, my dyslexia, and how my dyslexic traits might affect me at work. Fast forward quite a few years, and it's been a real journey, like learning to understand my brain from an awareness point of view, knowing that some of my traits that I have, for example, quite slow working memory, having lots of meetings and trying to retain that information.
Yeah.
And also, I work in marketing, I do lots of writing, and actually it does take me longer than other people to write and to read back, like large amounts of information. Yeah, everyone is different, but that understanding that Natalie talks about is so important, because if you don't understand your brain, how can you put in place what you need to succeed?
Before we go any further, what do we mean by dyslexia? Well, dyslexia is a learning difference that primarily affects reading, writing, and spelling abilities. Despite what many individuals with dyslexia might say about themselves, it's not actually linked to intelligence, but rather how the brain processes language. Individuals on your team who have been diagnosed with dyslexia or show signs of dyslexia might face challenges when it comes to tasks such as reading lengthy passages of text or taking notes or written communication. On the other hand, they might demonstrate exceptional abilities in problem solving, creativity, and thinking about the bigger picture. Without the right support, dyslexia can lead to frustration and lower productivity, but with the right tools and accommodations like assistive technology or flexible communication methods, your employees can still thrive and contribute immense value to your organisation. In this particular session, Natalie raised an incredible point about how dyslexia impacts so much more than just spelling. It's also verbal instruction and language difficulties. People who think they understand the realities of dyslexia need to just take a listen to this.
So common is the experience of dyslexic people being told, oh, but we have spell check, it's fine. And I think it's about understanding that it's so much more than that. It's so much more complicated than that. It's so much more frustrating than that. I can't tell you how many of my clients have said to me over the years, if spelling was the problem with dyslexia, if that was it, if this was all I was dealing with, fine, great, I've got it, like, it's okay, I can deal with it. But it's the ability to check your own work and notice your own mistakes, despite the fact you've checked it 10, 15, 20 times. And one of the things that haunts me still to this day, as someone who is trying to help dyslexic people, is the challenge of homophones.
Whoa, homophones. Homophones are a nightmare, without adding the challenge of dyslexia to the mix. So, in an attempt to clarify, and bear with me here, you'll see what I mean. A homophone is a word which is pronounced like another, but has a different meaning, and in some cases, even a different spelling. So, bear and bear, as in the animal, but also meaning to tolerate, or bear with me while I fight this bear with my bare hands. I can't hear you from over here. My family always used to play a game going on a road trip. The first to see the sea had to shout, "I can see the sea." It gets better. Homophones can also differ quite a bit in spelling, such as carrot, like the ring, and carrot for your dinner. Or everybody's favourite there, and there. We shouldn't get into it, but there's accept and accept, whether or weather, and proceed and precede. If a spell checker can't solve the challenges of dyslexia alone, then what about other assistive technologies? What might be useful for people with dyslexia? Assistive technology describes any tools, products, or systems that help an individual with disabilities or impairments to carry out tasks or activities. It supports people who face difficulties with all sorts of things, like typing and writing, speaking, hearing and seeing, even walking and moving and understanding. The benefits of it run far and wide, from boosting cognitive functions to closing learning and language gaps. Assistive technology is an effective method for increasing workplace equity, boosting learning, and improving your bottom line. I've learnt recently that by 2030, over 2 billion people are going to need at least one AT product to support them. I think that's crazy. It's because it comes in so many different forms, like text-to-speech, optical character recognition systems, reading and writing tools like screen readers and mind maps. There are also communication devices like assistive listening devices, augmentation and alternative communication devices. Actually, my nan is blind and she has an incredible device that you can put a piece of paper on, like a letter and her birthday cards, and it reads it out. Like, I'm sure that would fit in this category, and it's just something that I think is really cool. There are some great ergonomic devices on the market too, like specialized keyboards and mouse technologies. Then, of course, there's voice-to-text assistants like captioning, note-taking, and voice recognition, and dictation software like Caption.Ed and TalkType, created by CareScribe. Assistive technology can officially help staff become more engaged and more productive. Fun fact, 75% of managers said that making adjustments helped their employees be more productive. And on average, 50% of employees are more likely to stay with an organisation that offers tailored adjustments for their needs, meaning an inclusive organisation has higher staff retention rates. They're more likely to unlock talents like innovation at work once they receive appropriate forms of assistive technology. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, and this is going to be my only plug. But if you want to learn more about TalkType or Captioned, see them for yourself in action, have a look at our website, and after you finish listening to us, take a read, take a look, book a demo. Honestly, everything is linked in the description, but it is really worth checking out how they could help your employees and your team. Let's get back to Natalie.
So we talked a little bit about the challenges and like what they may look like and examples of them, but what is the reality of the dyslexic experiences behind that? And it will make sense shortly as to why I'm touching on this and why I think this is so important, because this is what I'm seeing all day, every day. So this may be you, like I said, if you're a person who's struggling with your own dyslexia or trying to create success with your dyslexia, or this could be your team, this could be a large swathes of your employees if you're in a managerial position. The reality is so many dyslexic people fear being outside of their comfort zone. And that might mean pushing back on a promotion. It might mean not speaking up in a meeting if they've got an idea or a thought or something that they think they want to say, but there's this voice in their head that says, no, like I'm definitely wrong. I can't be right. Oh, I don't want to say anything. What if I say it wrong? And you lose that idea, you lose that thought, you lose that experience of that person because they just are too afraid to speak up. Or maybe there's a project they would be amazing at running, but because they've never done it before and the fear of putting themselves in the spotlight means that they're not going to take it on, they're going to just sit quietly, or the fear that maybe it will take on too much time and they won't be quick enough. And so the natural desire is to just stay in the background, stay quiet, try and stay in their comfort zone. that means that we miss out on ideas. It means we miss out on experience. It means that we miss out on the opportunity to progress ourselves. And I can't tell you how common this is. I have a client at the moment who I'm in a full-on battle with. He's determined to request a demotion, and I'm determined that he shall not request a demotion, because every single day he's living in fear of this particular meeting he has to go to every week. And because of that, he wants to ask for a demotion. Like, this is the extent to which it impacts and permeates our careers.
Once again, I asked Lucy to give her input on being outside of the comfort zone. Here's what she had to say.
Yeah, I think this is such a common experience. I know particularly for myself, when you have traits where things just take you that little bit longer for time, and you don't put that time in place, it's really easy to do more behind the scenes and hide it. And then once you are sort of hiding those dyslexic traits, you then have this fear and this feeling around like you're not good enough, or you're stupid, or there's this imposter syndrome on speed because you also have dyslexia, where you have this fear of being found out. And so naturally you'd want to like stay in your comfort zone, and this fear of not being found out, so you don't put yourself out there.
And the problem with putting yourself down is it sets off a chain of reactions and presumptions. Natalie actually shared a really eye-opening example of this. We're going to have another listen.
When I was younger and I was working in this big tech company that I guarantee you've all heard of, I started at the same time as this girl, and I subsequently found out she was being paid 10 grand more than me. And I was a little disappointed, and I found out that it was because I kind of lowballed myself in the interview stage. I'd kind of like said that I wasn't really that competent, and they weren't really sure whether or not they wanted to hire me, and so they hired me at a much lower salary, which obviously sucks. But then it gets worse. So then I'm on the cusp of a promotion, and they tell me that I have to take on this new account to be able to show that I'm capable of this new amount of money, which is fine. And I'm taking over this account, and it's going well. And my colleague says to me, Natalie, you're actually really good at your job. And I was like, yeah. I thought that was a given. And she was like, no, but you constantly talk about how you're not good enough. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, but they're just jokes. She was like, well, why would I know otherwise? If you think you're bad, then why would I take the time to realize that you weren't? And she actually told me that when this account was being taken off her and given to me, she had protested and said that I wasn't good enough or wasn't capable. And that was partly because of the way that I used to speak about myself. So these are the realities of like how feeling different and feeling uncomfortable and feeling frustrated in the workplace can result and have a huge impact on both how your employees are able to show up for you, or how you're able to show up for yourself in your career.
As we heard, the result of those negative comments about yourself is that your colleagues and the people around you start to believe them too. It feeds that spiral of self-defamation, low self-belief, and naturally that forms stigmas that unfortunately still exist. So, aside from the assistive technology that we mentioned earlier, Natalie let us know her 2 key pillars for how else you could support employees that are having these experiences.
Obviously, we've talked about the importance of assistive technology and how it absolutely changes the game for dyslexic people. But the 2 things that I think we need on top of that often we maybe don't think about or aren't aware of is flexibility and kindness, because that can really create so much change for people. So what is flexibility and kindness? What on earth am I rabbiting on about? Well, again, we've talked about the fact that dyslexic minds think differently, and we have different challenges and different strengths. And creating flexibility in like, does things have to be done that way? Could we look at something differently? Could we take on board this new approach? Or could we look at how we configure the team? Can be critical for creating success and to try and help people really feel comfortable and successful, and looking at the makeup of a team and tasks and processes to really think about things that could be done differently. So one of the things I've noticed about dyslexic people that are able to create success is when we create the process, when we are the one who has full control of things, when we are the one who does things from end to end, often we are so successful. So if you're thinking to yourself, or just like feeling like this isn't working, this is just feeling really like, oh, I'm frustrated, or like doesn't feel like it's clicking, ask yourself, how much autonomy do I have over that process? Did I create this process? Would it be useful if I kind of re-engineered things? Dyslexic people are amazing at simplifying things. So looking at a process and thinking, well, that's wonky. What if we did it just bam, bam, bam? And maybe it's simpler and easier. And so often I speak to dyslexic people who have like jiggled around company systems and approaches. And once people have noticed it, or maybe they're privately doing it their way, and then everyone's like, oh, well, that looks great. Like, why don't we initiate that? And you're like, oh, well, like, I just didn't want to say anything, or I just, didn't want to cause a fuss. So often changing a process or a system to find things your way can be really helpful. The other thing is flexibility on how we're explaining things or how we're approaching things. How many times have you sat in a meeting and thought to yourself, I do not understand what they're saying, and I'm going to smile and I'm going to nod and hopefully it will be fine. Often one of the things that dyslexic people say to me is they say like, I just kind of don't really understand, and I don't really understand why I don't understand. And one of the things I consistently say to people to try and help create success and to think about things differently is try and ask for the context of things. Dyslexic people love to know why. We have this brain that likes to see the top level of things, likes to see the interconnections of things. So when you're explaining something to a dyslexic person, examples of how that might be the case, or providing them context on why they're in this meeting or what is going on, ideally providing that information in advance so that they can start getting that processing speed going and starting putting the thoughts together. So explaining information in a way that is new or different, and being flexible in that ability to maybe answer some questions that don't instantly feel like they make sense, but might help click something for someone. That's a tip I give to all my clients and they really love it. So the context of things, if you're struggling, is a really big one to go for.
Wonky. I literally love that description. It seems so simple when Natalie talks about it like that, but flexibility. Asking for what you need and knowing that what you need can have such a big difference. I'm going to use Lucy and me as an example because obviously we work together in the marketing team. When Lucy is given a template or a strict procedure to follow or way of doing something, she can actually find it quite difficult. It takes more time and it takes more energy to achieve the end result. Whereas setting up the process, Lucy's a superstar at, which makes us such a good team because I'm the other way around. I struggle to create the templates because I'm trying to achieve something that I'm not really sure what the end goal is. So having a template and a very clear structure put together for me allows me to do my job perfectly. Working without the clear instructions or formatting just stresses me out. How am I supposed to tick boxes if I don't know what boxes I'm ticking? I don't like making my own boxes. Anyway, there is another pillar that Natalie mentioned, so we'll have a look at that.
The second one is kindness. So we've talked a lot about stress and anxiety and how that's a huge blocker for dyslexic people. There's also research that cortisol, obviously the hormone related to stress and anxiety, actually impacts dyslexic challenges, particularly working memory. So not only does it feel like it makes things worse, it might actually make things worse as well. One of the things that I often say to clients when they come to me and we're trying to work out what's the best thing for them, what's going to be the most useful, is I say to them like, well, can you tell me a time when you've done a similar task and it's felt like it's gone better? And maybe we can pull some themes of what worked there across and figure it out. This is a great question to ask yourself if you're ever struggling, by the way, like, have I ever done this before and what did I do well? Because often we kind of know what we need, but we just feel unsure about whether or not it's going to work. Or if I could click my fingers and ask for anything, what would it be? That's another like nice question that always helps. like get the juices flowing on what you might find useful. And the thing that my clients say to me over and over again, well, I've just recently changed bosses, and like the one I had before was just really understanding, and it just made me feel really comfortable and capable. And now I just feel really awkward about the fact that I'm struggling, and I feel really embarrassed, and it's just making it 10 times worse. So often this is where awareness comes into the picture, because the perceived feeling of dyslexic people is these challenges that we have that maybe are a little bit more unique to us. Like, oh, like it's not, we worry that people perceive us as stupid or a problem or like less than in some way. And so when you have that understanding and that kindness and that acceptance of the reality of what this difference feels like, it can go such a long way to feeling like you're able to thrive and be successful.
Natalie actually continues this by explaining the value of kindness, really focusing on the concept of bearing with, and no, I'm not going back to the homophones. I mean, bearing with in terms of what people with dyslexia often value most is being kind. So again, from Lucy's perspective, a simple act of kindness is just knowing. She really values when people understand and respect that she might need a little bit of help to check things over, looking at work and proofreading things. Like, that shouldn't be a problem for anyone. It's an act of kindness to know that you might have to just check some things for Lucy. And for myself, I resonate with kindness of someone taking a little bit longer to explain something to me. Back to the boxes. Really clarifying the details so that I can check I know what I'm doing. I don't want to feel like I'm being some sort of hindrance to anybody. This might be my favourite quote from the session, but Natalie really hit the nail on the head here. And just before we end the episode with Natalie's actionable takeaways, I really want you to turn your volume up. And if you don't take anything else away from the last 20-25 minutes of me rambling, please listen to the reality of dyslexia in the workplace.
Again, we've talked about difference when it comes to dyslexia, and that's what can be really frustrating. Understanding that dyslexic challenges look different, and that's okay. The list of things that you're struggling with are just the list of things that you're struggling with. Everyone is struggling with something. These just happen to be yours. I'm going to say it again loudly for the people in the back that are listening to me but ignoring this point. Everyone has challenges. These just happen to be yours. Because I don't know about you, but when I used to sit in my annual review, and year after year after year after year, my bosses would say to them, and there were many. I mean, I think I had 25 bosses. Honestly, they would just rotate every 18 months. They would say to me, "Oh, yeah, great job, Natalie, this year. Like, really pleased with everything. Blah 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 blah. Could you just double check your work though? Like, just do make sure you double check your work." And you're like, "Double check my work." If only I'd thought of that. But the reality is that it took me so long to understand is someone else is coming into that meeting room after me, and they're going to have a meeting about their annual review, and they're not going to be told to double check their work, but maybe they're going to be told that it's really important that this is a kind of an area where we're moving the company forward and we're moving the team forward, and they really need to contribute ideas. Or maybe they're going to be talked about their management style and the fact that they're like struggling a little bit with empathy, and it's really important that they manage that process better. Everyone has challenges. These just happen to be yours.
Perfectly worded, and a perfect place for us to end. As Natalie did in the webinar, the specific takeaways for you to apply to your organisation and start really supporting the people on your team who need it. Here's what she said.
So, what different may look like. Here's just a few examples that I wanted to kind of give to people who are looking for really specific takeaways and things that they can implement today. The first one is visual-led systems. Anything that helps you feel like your brain is out on the page. You're able to see what is going on. If you're able to feel in control of everything, that visual led system can make such a difference. If you struggle with remembering things, how is your reminder system going to be as visual as possible? If you feel like you're getting behind on all your tasks, how can your overview of what you need to be doing be as visual as possible? So you can see red is there, amber is there, green is there. What is it that you're doing to be able to give you that snapshot that your brain loves so much? The other thing we talked a little bit about is the practical ways of working. So when someone is explaining something, running through it, sitting there with you rather than explaining it and you just kind of like process the information like, yeah, I understand. So sitting step by step and running through something, providing examples of something, giving context to something, anything that can start utilizing that multisensory learning can be really, really useful. So someone explains something and you write it down at the same time. These kind of things are so useful to jump into different parts of our brain and be able to create multiple hooks. That's the way I think about it, is like the information is just swimming past and your just job is to have as many fish hooks as you can to just grab that information and take it into your brain.
And with that, I am going to let you get back to the rest of your day. That is all from me in this episode. And saying goodbye, I'm sure won't get easier with the more episodes I do. But thank you for joining me in the first ever episode of the Skill Sessions Pod. I will see you again in a few weeks. And in the meantime, remember to check out the Skill Sessions playlist on YouTube. I've linked it in the description, and come back for more from me in the future with the Skill Sessions Pod. If you've enjoyed the episode, please help us spread the word. Thank you for listening. Bye.